you're not an infant Baptist church, are you? This church. Do you baptize babies here in this church? No. Okay. Therefore, you are what's called a faith baptism or a credo. Credo just means faith. Credo Baptist Church. Did you know that some of the denominations we listed, the Reformed churches, the Presbyterian churches, okay, these churches, they baptize babies, but therefore the two church group disagree. But you can disagree amicably. Do you see? Right? You would never say to a Christian that believes in all the central things and live a godly life, and if they disagree and they believe in infant baptism, you wouldn't say, "Wow, you're sinning against the Lord." It wouldn't be appropriate. You see, same thing. Views on charismatic gifts. Speaking of John MacArthur, he comes from a tradition of theologians and pastors and churches that believe in cessationists, the word to cease. They do not believe any of these miraculous gifts as taught in passages like Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12 exist today. For example, the speaking in tongues. For example, the gifts of healing. For example, the gift of speaking prophecies. They believe it ceased at the formation of the New Testament. On the other end of the spectrum, they're called whom? What are the groups that really believe and really practice? What are those groups called? Pentecostals. Pentecostals and charismatic groups, they believe that not only do those gifts exist, but they should be practiced in the church actively. For example, they would have a prayer of healing and prophetic prayer within the Sunday service. Do you have that? Therefore, you're not a charismatic church. However, if you're a church that believe that those gifts exist, but do not practice them as actively or emphasize them as actively, you are known as the middle group. That's also my group. It's called the continuationist. My point is, if you encounter a Christian and a church that differs from you or your church, from the three categories, you would never say you're walking in sin. You would never say, you shouldn't say that. If you said that, you would be overly harsh, harsher than the Bible. Okay, all right. So here's the other one: use of alcohol not leading to drunkenness. Okay, let me be sensitive here. In times past, particularly in terms of the upbringing of the individual, and certainly so about 150 years ago, 200 years ago, there were major alcoholism issues in the United States. And therefore, there are many Christians that felt that touching alcohol at all is a sin, even if it's not drunkenness, and even if you're of age, you gotta be 19. Okay? But there are some Christians that, because of personal conscience issues, or maybe they grew up in an environment where perhaps their dad was an alcoholic and beat their mom, they feel in their heart, in their gut, that any alcohol is sin. That is fine if they hold to that person of you. But if they consider any church, for example, many Western churches, how many of you have been to a church that served communion and offered a wine option? How many of you have been to a church like that? There are many in Greater Vancouver that when you come up for communion, they usually serve it in the following way, right? They have two people standing there, one person holding the plate with the bread, the other person having two cups, one with the J letter and one with the W letter. Go figure. Okay, go figure, right? And you get to choose. Would it be correct if churches or Christians that, because of their upbringing or history, thought that all those churches were sinning against God? Do you know what I'm trying to say? That's called a secondary doctrine, do you see?